Lucas Hayward, a 66-year-old man, had become a recognizable presence in his Brooklyn neighborhood where he had been homeless for over a decade. With a thin, weathered frame and a scruffy silver beard that hadn't seen grooming in years, Lucas carried an old military-style backpack, faded green canvas with frayed straps. Unlike many homeless individuals who would often beg for change or make disturbances, Lucas was known as the quiet one. He preferred to keep to himself. Lucas spent his days collecting bottles for recycling and occasionally accepting leftover food from sympathetic cafe workers. He avoided sleeping in one place too long to ensure he wouldn't be seen as a nuisance. Few people knew that he had served in the U.S. Army for over 20 years, receiving an honorable discharge in 2004. He spiraled into depression after his wife, Eleanor, died from cancer in 2008. A misdiagnosis by the VA had shattered his faith in the system. Following her death, he walked away from everything, selling their home and donating the proceeds to Eleanor's favorite charity. Sometimes Lucas would share with volunteers at soup kitchens that it was easier to be nobody than someone who felt they had let their loved ones down. One bitterly cold November afternoon, as the temperature dropped below freezing, Lucas ducked into Calvini's grocery. He had gone 3 days without eating, his hands trembling as he slipped a day-old loaf of bread into his coat while Mr. Calvini helped another customer. But Mr. Calvini had installed security mirrors recently. "Hey, stop right there," Mr. Calvini shouted, reaching for the phone. "I'm calling the cops." Lucas didn't run. Instead, he stood still, the bread visible in his half-zipped jacket. "I just needed strength to live one more day," he said quietly. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. The younger officer, Officer Miles, looked uncomfortable as he placed handcuffs around Lucas's frail wrists. "You really a vet?" Miles asked, noticing a worn dog tag chain around Lucas's neck. "This ID is pretty beat up." Lucas nodded, saying, "I used to be someone useful, not anymore." "Gotta take you in, sir," Miles said apologetically. "Store owner's pressing charges." At the precinct, Lucas was treated like any other petty criminal. A public defender met with him briefly, seeming more interested in clearing cases than understanding his client. Lucas was assigned a court date for the following morning, a preliminary hearing. When morning arrived, Lucas was escorted into a Brooklyn courtroom, still wearing the same wrinkled clothes from the day before. No family awaited him, only a few lawyers, reporters, and court employees going about their duties. Case number 47,093 State versus Lucas Hayward, the clerk announced monotonously. The young prosecutor, adjusting his tie, began, "Your Honor, the defendant was caught stealing a loaf of bread from the local market. Given his prior thefts and lack of fixed residence, we recommend continued detention until trial." Judge Alan Rivers, known for his stern demeanor, glanced at the case file, barely acknowledging Lucas's presence. "Mr. Hayward, how do you plead?" the judge asked finally. "Guilty, Your Honor," Lucas replied softly. "I was hungry." Someone in the back row snickered, earning a sharp glare from the judge. As the judge began reading from the identification details, the silence in the room escalated. Judge Rivers recognized Lucas's name and suddenly stood, vacating his chair without explanation. The courtroom froze in confusion, with the judge's face betraying a controlled emotion. "Court will take a 15-minute recess," he announced, before exiting to his chambers. As whispers spread through the courtroom, Lucas remained still, eyes on the floor, unaware of the significance of the moment. He represented something greater, a class of America's veterans forgotten by the very society they served. In his chambers, Judge Rivers pulled out a worn photograph from his desk, pictures of military personnel in Iraq, one of whom was Lucas, 20 years younger and serving as a field medic. Rivers activated his computer and searched Lucas's military record, confirming that Staff Sergeant Lucas Hayward had served 3 tours, 2 in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan, working in logistics. He received the Bronze Star for Valor when his convoy was ambushed in 2003. Instead of seeking cover, Lucas drove a burning supply truck away from wounded troops, saving 17 lives despite sustaining injuries. The judge's attention was captured by a classified mission report indicating that Lucas had carried an injured medic, Private First Class Samuel Rivers, Judge Rivers's own son, 2 miles to safety during a chaotic evacuation under enemy fire. "My God," Rivers whispered, realizing that his life was saved by the very man he was about to send to jail. For years, Lucas had lived on the outskirts of society, ignored and often treated harshly. On his darkest days, he would hold on to a plastic-wrapped photo of Eleanor, whispering, "Almost there, Ellie." During the night, he'd absorbed the indifference from others around him without fighting back. Back in his chambers, Judge Rivers made quick phone calls to verify Lucas's service record and then to Colonel James Lawson, who had served beside Lucas. "It's Alan Rivers. I found him, the man who saved my son in Fallujah. He's in my courtroom right now, homeless, charged with theft." "Don't let him leave. I'm 3 hours away," Lawson replied. Rivers wrote a note on official letterhead, stating that Lucas was not merely another homeless man, but a symbol of loyalty forgotten by the country he served. While judges generally couldn't dismiss cases due to personal connections, Rivers was committed to ensuring that justice took an unexpected turn. When the recess ended, the judge returned to a courtroom that had started to buzz with curiosity about Lucas's case. As Lucas prepared for the next part of the hearing, he noticed Colonel Lawson enter the court. Lawson approached the witness stand confidently, presenting himself to the judge and audience. After being sworn in, Lawson explained, "I am Colonel James Lawson, currently at Fort Hamilton. I first met Staff Sergeant Lucas Hayward during our deployment to Iraq in 2003. The colonel continued, describing Lucas's actions that saved lives during a horrific ambush. The courtroom fell silent, and whispers spread as Lawson spoke of Lucas carrying him to safety. Lucas Hayward sustained wounds to his leg but refused treatment until the medics stabilized me." The prosecutor, feeling uncomfortable, attempted to steer the conversation back to the theft, but was interrupted. "After reviewing Mr. Hayward's file, we discovered an administrative error in 2008, Lawson stated. His pension and benefits were wrongly terminated when he didn't respond to paperwork sent to an outdated address, entitling him to approximately $1,370 per month for the past 15 years, with medical care for service-related injuries leading to approximately $246,000 in unpaid benefits." Lucas was stunned by the realization of what he had missed. Judge Rivers addressed Lucas directly for the first time. "In light of these extraordinary circumstances, Mr. Hayward, would you please approach the bench?" As Lucas stood hesitantly, the judge added, "I did not recognize you yesterday. After reviewing your file, I realized you saved my life in Iraq." A collective gasp filled the gallery. The judge continued, "I've spent years trying to locate you to express my gratitude. I didn't know your full name. I just heard Hayward shouted amidst the chaos." Lucas, finally able to speak, said, "I was just doing my job, sir." "You did far more than that," Judge Rivers replied. "This country has failed to do its job for you." The judge then turned to the prosecutor, asking if the state wished to proceed with the charges. "Now moved," the prosecutor stated, "the state moves to dismiss all charges against Mr. Hayward." The judge responded, "So ordered. Mr. Hayward, you are free to go. This court extends its deepest apologies for the miscarriage of justice that has prolonged." Suddenly, the courtroom doors opened, and a woman in her 30s entered. "Uncle Lucas," she exclaimed, running up to him. "I'm Rebecca, Eleanor's niece. We've been searching for you for years." Lucas finally broke down, allowing himself to be embraced for the first time in years. Outside the courtroom, reporters gathered around Colonel Lawson, who insisted, "This isn't just about one veteran, it's about thousands of Lucas Haywards who slipped through cracks in a system they defended." Within hours, the story had gone viral, leading to discussions about how society treats its veterans. In a private moment, Judge Rivers expressed his gratitude. During Veterans Day, Lucas stood before a crowd at Fort Hamilton, dressed in his uniform for the first time in decades. When he spoke, he reflected on everything that had transpired. "I once protected this country. Now the country has protected me in return. Kindness is never too late. It needs someone patient enough to wait. As he stepped down from the podium, all military personnel, from recruits to veterans, rose to salute him. Lucas returned the gesture with pride, no longer looking down but forward into the future. Lucas's story transformed public discourse, leading to calls for reform as his experiences were juxtaposed with images of him on the streets. Over a few months, he moved into Veterans Village, a supportive housing community in Brooklyn. His small apartment created a space he could finally call home. After many years of invisibility, Lucas became a voice for veterans, sharing his story to spark conversations. He maintained a friendship with Judge Rivers, occasionally joining his family for dinners. "I don't need anyone's pity," Lucas told the judge one evening. "I hope they'll remember those who came before." And so, Lucas Hayward emerged as a symbol of resilience and hope, illuminating the need for compassion towards those who serve and sacrifice. Justice, he realized, might be delayed, but is never absent.